What is up, Law Nation? You're now tuning in to the Passive Income Attorney Podcast. As always, I hope you're having a great week. When you have a moment, be sure to go to intelligentpassiveinvestor.com and get the cash flow calculator for free while you still can. It will show you how to start buying back your time piece by piece. Okay, so you decided to take the leap of faith. I've finally convinced you to invest in real estate. Where do you start? HGTV flip? Airbnb, passively, actively? Where does this all begin? Today, you'll find out how to make that big decision. And we'll also show you how investing in real estate will not only change your life for the better, but also the lives of the residents of those properties. Our guest of honor today is none other than Matt Faircloth, a friend and business partner of mine, and the president and founder of DeRosa Capital. And he's the best-selling author of the book, Raising Private Capital, published by Bigger Pockets. All right, guys, let's go.
This is the Passive Income Attorney Podcast, where you'll discover the secrets and strategies of the ultra wealthy on how they build streams of passive income to give them the freedom we all want. Attorney Seth Bradley will help you end the cycle of trading your time for money so you can make money while you sleep. Start living the good life on your own terms. Now, here's your host, Seth Bradley.
Matt Faircloth, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you, Seth. It's such an honor to be here. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man, really happy to have you on. You know, we've crossed paths quite a few times and working on some deals together. So I'm really excited to have you on today.
Absolutely. Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, let's just jump right in. So, what's your story? Just feel free to brag a little bit. Take it back as far as you want.
Hey. I'm pretty modest. We're a full-time real estate operator. We've been in operations for 15 years. I'm gonna say 18. I'm aging myself. No, we've been full-time real estate investors for 15 years. Seen market cycles up and down, kind of rode the tiger for a while there, and got into multifamily about 9 years ago. Before that, we were into a lot of single families and a lot of rentals. We own an office complex that we bought about 12 years ago. We've been, just really into residential housing. Aside from the office complex, has really been what we've done, whether that's through fix and flip models or single family homes. We've done some lease to own with tenants. We own some mixed use buildings. I still view that to be residential, really. So that's really us. I quit my job in 2005 to invest full time, and that's been that's like kind of been the full steam ahead direction we've been. And I will say that my wife is my partner as well, so I've done a lot in investing with my spouse, which is I think a lot of real estate investors, either their spouse ends up being their partner or ends up being their best cheerleader. And those that I find are successful in real estate have spouses that are full supportive of what they're doing, and fully enrolled in what they're doing too. So
yeah, that's really cool, man. I mean, how's that gone? Has that been a smooth process? Was that the thing from the beginning? Was I want to work with my wife on these projects and bring her into the business?
I mean, it's not. I mean, my wife and I fight like badgers sometimes, but I mean, we love each other, but that's just our personalities. We just kind of like, knock it out and drag it out and then hug it out kind of thing, So we read Rich Dad Poor Dad together. We played cash flow together in like the early 2000s before I quit my job and before we got married. So we've always been business partners, and that's okay, because that means that we kind of wanted to go in the same direction as a married couple, right? Like, we wanted financial freedom. We wanted the time freedom that real estate investing can provide. We wanted to lead a big life, right? And so we both wanted the results that real estate investing could yield. And so intentionally, in the beginning, we did a lot of the work together because it's what we wanted. Now she's gone off into her own direction with the Real Estate Invest Her community and the Real Estate Invest Her podcast. That's been her own vehicle and her own journey, which has been incredible and inspiring to witness her do that. So we're actually working less and less together because she's got her own road that she's walking and everything like that. But we still meet weekly and still talk about deals, still run stuff by each other and all that. But we're kind of more support and board members for each other than we are directly working with each other. But we did that for years.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really
Yeah.
interesting dynamic. I mean, I think if you can run a business together and you're going to stay together, right? I mean, I have a gym that I run with my wife. She's kind of the main operator, but
Yeah.
opening through COVID and trying to stay open during COVID and all that was a pretty daunting task. So, you butt
Mhm.
heads a little bit, but you work it out and you're better for it in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But I mean, and it's okay. First of all, it's okay to butt heads. If somebody's listening and you and your spouse get along all the time, like you're just not being authentic enough with each other, like you're hiding out.
Yeah.
And so I also find that having a business with your spouse really like it links you at the hip, man. I mean, you're like partners at that point.
Right.
And you're not going to become that spouse that just comes home and just sits over dinner where it's like, how was your day, honey? Fine. How was your day, honey? I'm okay. And you just become distant and you really become just roommates more than anything else. I mean, like having a partner with your spouse is like freaking, you become Starsky and Hutch, man. You just like become attached at the hip and you're like going to tackle life together. And it creates a bond in working with in your marriage that it becomes unbreakable. And yeah, it's bumpy. Yeah, it sucks sometimes. Yeah, like you fight. But so what, man? You're supposed, you're at the end of the day, you're really engaged in life together and like committed to your financial freedom together. You
Yeah.
know,
It's almost like you had another baby and that baby's the business.
it is. We have two kids too, but for the longest time, the business was our baby. We used to say that, like the business is a
Yeah.
baby. This is a
Right.
baby,
Right.
And now I got three kids. I got two kids and a business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were an engineer at some
Yeah.
point, right? That was the W-2?
Mhm.
That's
Yep.
awesome.
Yeah, I worked for Ingersoll Rand, went to Virginia Tech. It's funny. I find that a lot of real estate investors are recovering engineers.
I've seen that too.
Yeah, I can name probably 7 or 8 of them off the top of my head that have a degree in engineering that got into real estate investing. I don't know why that is. I can't put a pin on that. It's probably got to do with personality styles or whatever. But I was an engineer worked for Ingersoll Rand, selling their compressed air machinery on a traveling sales route for about 7 years. Did well with it, but it wasn't my passion, and I kind of felt like I was hitting the glass ceiling. In my mid 20s, I was already starting to feel the top of the frame for where I was going, and I knew that if I had kept going down that road, I would get less and less ownership of my time,
Yeah.
and maybe a little more money, but less and less of my time, and more, working for the man. So
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And on the show, we always like to talk about that particular inflection point. I mean,
mhm.
at what point in your life and in your career did you have that aha moment and you were like, okay, I've got to figure out what else I can do? And then obviously you found real estate. I don't know if that was the first step in that journey or what, but maybe walk us through that.
No, I'll give you the aha moment. I mean, it was not reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. Reading Rich Dad Poor Dad just opened me up to another vehicle, and going to local RIAs and playing cash flow and stuff like that. That all like, okay, cool. This is good. This is good. The aha moment was at one point, I had a few dollars put together, and in your mid 20s, it wasn't a ton. It was like $5,000, but in your 20s, that's like a mountain of money, right? And so I had enough to limp in to buy. Oh, and the lease was ending in the house that I was in, so I had $5,000 set aside. And so I'm like, I'm gonna buy a house and live in this house. And so I limped into a deal, like literally went all in on a 3% down FHA, bought a house for 150K, little townhome, 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath. And my mortgage payment was $940 a month. And my 2 roommates in the house that I used to live in that I was leasing were like, well, where are we going to go? I'm like, well, you should come with me. And so they moved into my house, and we just stumbled into this thing. And they decided, okay, well, we're paying $600 a month to the other landlord. We'll pay you $500 a month. And I said, great. So they each paid me $500 a month, but my mortgage was $940, right? So I was making $60 a month and living there for free, making like a high 5-figure, almost 6-figure salary in my mid 20s. And I was like, hey, I'm making all this money now on my salary and I don't have any living expenses anymore. This is pretty cool, And so in 2 years, I paid off like 30 grand worth of student loan debt, back credit cards, completely got myself bad debt free in about 2 years, just through adjusting my living situation. That was my aha moment. I was like, holy crap, man, this is pretty cool. The house, it was a house hack, as they call,
Yep.
you know, as we call it on Bigger Pockets, but we didn't call it that back then. We just called it having roommates, you know? So, right. So it was fun. And I had lived with my buddies, you know, and we'd go out for beers on the weekends and stuff like that. But these guys I was going out for beers with were now helping me, you know, they were paying my living expenses, which was amazing. So that was the aha. And I recommend that to anybody that's listening to this, that's in their early to mid 20s or doesn't own any real estate yet that wants to get into investing. House hack. Do that first, because that will get you a long ways towards being financially free, sooner than you think it will. So
yeah, I did the same thing. My first house was a house hack. I bought a duplex that I lived in half and rented out the other half. I mean, it's so easy to get in on that, because you just have to pay that 3 or 5% down. You get in for so cheap, and eventually it turns into a great rental. I still have that property.
Yeah, that's great. That's the only regret I have, is that my wife and I, when we got married, and I kept that house and put somebody in my bedroom, you know, when I moved out, and I held it for a couple of years myself. And then when my wife and I got married and moved, the only regret I have is that we didn't move into a duplex or a triplex or a quad, you know, and just do it again. We wanted to have our own home and our own this and our own that and everything like that. So we should have kept it going, because she was a gamer, but we just couldn't find any small multis. We should have just looked harder. You know, we didn't find any small multis that met our criteria in that, but that's kind of a cop out. We probably should have kept looking. So
yeah. As long as you can keep doing that and moving into a new place. I mean, that's just such a cheap way, an easy way to get into properties. It's pretty spectacular. I mean, it's probably the best way to get started.
That's huge.
And you also mentioned you got out of bad debt. That's a key too. I mean, you know, a lot of our listeners are attorneys, and they're in a lot of bad debt too, because they keep buying, you know, the new 5 Series or the next big house, and they've got all these big bills, and we call it the golden handcuffs. I mean, you just, you know, you get strapped to your job because you keep buying more and more of these material things, and you have to have the newest of everything. And then eventually it's like, well, I can't even step away from my job, even though I make a ton of money, because I'm spending a ton of money.
Yeah. I call it broke at another level. You know, and I've met people in my paths of life that, you know, their nut, like their you know, expense nut to make is 30 grand a month, you know, and that's with house mortgage payment. And, you know, this kid that they have is taking horseback riding lessons at 2,000 a month. And they got this kid in private school, and the father's taking pilot's lessons. I get it. That's all great. God bless you for, you know, living life big and everything like that. And it's not that you shouldn't be spending 30K a month, but you also got to watch, like, are you saving? How much of your income is passive that's supplementing? I mean, what if you could invest some money and your kid gets the horseback riding lessons on passive income? That's a conversation, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's backwards, right? They need to do the passive investing first, and then use that income to spend that $30,000 a month on the horseback riding and all that kind of stuff. You just got to get it in the right order. Yeah.
Right. Lease that 5 Series and go take the, you know, 50 grand that you're going to lay down to buy it, or 100 grand you're going to buy it with, or whatever. And take that, invest it, have that produce cash flow, and that cash flow may cover the lease payment on the 5 Series.
Exactly.
You know, you got to start thinking. I got that from playing cash flow, right? Because when you play cash flow, it talks about your income, your expenses, and then your assets and your liabilities. And I started doing the math on, what if I pay off this car note, you know? No, that's going to return me 18%. You do the math, you know, like, okay, if I write a check in the board game for 30 grand to pay off my car note, it's going to produce an 18% cash on cash return. Interesting, you know? Well, I guess it'd be hard to find a rental that would produce that. So I think I'll just start paying off bad debt. Whatever, we start thinking about everything you do as an ROI. There's a lot of power in that, and paying down debt, there's an ROI to that too, you know? So it's not just the interest rate on the debt, it's making that monthly payment go away, you know? And if you can start dropping monthly payments off of your balance sheet, you know, that's all cash that's residual back in your pocket. The $800 a month you were paying on the 5 Series is now gone if you pay it off, or if you invest in a property to pay that pays you $800 a month.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, either way.
Exactly. I guess we can kind of just roll back into that. So, like, let's compare and contrast active investing versus passive investing. I mean, a lot of our listeners are kind of on the fence. They're like, oh, I want to invest in real estate. I don't know if I want to watch HGTV and follow the footsteps of the house flipping, or I've heard about passive investing into syndications. Where do they start? Like, what do they start thinking about to decide how to get started?
Stop watching HGTV. Start there, because that's all that's fantasy land, right? Like none of those shows are actually real, right? Those are all made up numbers. And I know several people, friends of mine in the real estate world, that have been on those shows, and those producers are regularly changing production numbers and changing profits and stuff like that. And a lot of people that are regular stars on those shows are just actors, right? That are just putting falsified numbers out there, and they're not lying. They're just like, this is entertainment, right? Don't like it's not like, look on YouTube if you want to watch real stuff about active real estate stuff. Going back to passive and active, there are a lot of folks out there that will run the numbers and say, hey Matt, or hey Seth, I want to invest in your deal, but I see that the deal is going to make 18% and you're only paying me 14, so I'm just going to go and do it myself and make the full 18. And they're devaluing the operations side of the business. And if you want to keep your law practice or your dental practice or your chiropractic practice or your whatever, your day-to-day gig, if you love what you do for a living, you should keep doing that, because I can tell you, you're probably going to hate real estate investing if you love what you do over here. Real estate investing can kick your teeth in really fast. And I know many people that tried to keep doing what they loved in the left hand and tried to real estate invest in the right hand. It doesn't work. Real estate investing can be time demanding until you build up a big enough portfolio that you can automate it. And people are like, oh, I'll just hire a property manager. BS. No, that you can, but you're still got to manage them. And they will not care about that property as much as you do. And there's nobody I know of that is zero active in the real estate business by just hiring a property manager. The only way to go zero active, not even zero, like 5-10% active, is to invest in a truly passive asset, a REIT, a syndication, and not even a turnkey. Turnkey doesn't count. Nope, you still got a property manager. You still got to talk to them, everything like that. There is time you will have to put in. And if you're not willing to invest with someone that's willing to put their time in, hear me, you will have to put time in, right? And those that are telling you that you will not have to put any time into your investment if you're not investing passively through someone else putting their time in for you, it's just not. I've just never seen it. I've bought properties off of many people that thought that there would be zero time involved, that ended up realizing that this thing is taking away more of their time than they wanted it to. But I've never seen anybody that's a full-time lawyer or a full-time anything and has active investments without an active operator stepping in for them.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of it just comes down to how much time do you have and how much do you actually want to do? I mean, you might think you want to do it and then you get into it and you're like, oh, like you said, oh, maybe I want to practice law. I want to be a doctor or a dentist. This is not really for me.
I want to do my love. Yeah. I want to work into my passion, whatever that is. And there's something to life about doing what you love or doing what you feel obligated to do, or not for nothing as a doctor, doing what you went to school for so long to do. What you made your life commitments to do. Like, why would a doctor that went to school for like 10 extra years after college to be a dentist or oral surgeon or whatever that makes good money, why would they step away from that so that they could deal with a clogged toilet, right? Or deal with a tenant that doesn't pay the rent, or to browbeat their property manager to get the unit leased in time, or to find out why the tenant just wrecked their unit and cost them $4,000 in reno cost. The property manager is not going to answer all that for you. You still have to talk to them and have those conversations. And those conversations a lot of time happen Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, Yeah.
And a lot of the issues, though, is, a lot of these folks aren't necessarily happy in their job. So they're kind of on the fence. They're like, well, what do I do? I don't love what I do. I don't hate it. But I think if you're in one of these high paying W-2s, the best way to look at it is, start buying back your time piece by piece, right? Until you're, it takes a little bit of time, but eventually you're going to be able to buy back big chunks of your time, and you can start practicing when you want to and not because you have to. And I think that's a key, because if you've already gotten yourself into these awesome W-2 positions and you're making a lot of money, it doesn't make sense to just dive into something that's unknown for you.
Real estate investing is not a solution for those that hate their job. If you hate your job, just go get a new job, right? Because real estate investing in the beginning is a job, right? There is nobody that in the first year of real estate investing is going to end up sipping Mai Tais and hiking the Himalayas, right? It doesn't work like that in the beginning. It does eventually. You get more and more ownership of your time after you hustle, but hustle comes first, right? And so if you like the real estate investing business, if you've researched it and talked to people like Seth and I that are active in the business, and it makes sense to you that you are willing to grind and put in the 10,000 hours, right? Then yeah, go for it. Do it. It's a beautiful, wonderful business and it's very rewarding. But don't discount the hustle. Don't see the people that are on the victory lap and think that that's what it looks like when you first start. Right. So
yeah.
no.
And if you're eyeing, big commercial deals or big apartment buildings or anything like that, I mean, a good way I always say is invest passively. And people told me that as well. I mean, invest passively to start, maybe find someone that might give you a peek behind the curtain a little bit more than the next person, and then see if you like it. And you may end up just liking it passively. So you just keep investing passively because you're like, oh, these returns are awesome.
I have many people that have invested with us. There's many people that have invested with us that either initially came in thinking that they would learn how to do what we do to do it themselves, which is totally fine. And I have people that started investing with us and have spurred off and done their own thing, which is totally fine too, right? But I have many more people that invested with us passively thinking that they would learn the game so they could do it themselves, and then realize how good of a gig it is to passively invest and not have to put in the hours, or not have to get the 10,000 hours to get to, expert level to where they could spin off on their own, right? And so there's something to passive investing and leveraging other people's time.
Yeah, for sure. So when these folks are looking for, one of those deals, I obviously the sponsor to me is the most important thing. And you as a really good sponsor, what are some of the things that a passive investor should look for in a sponsor?
If a sponsor is telling you they've never made a mistake and that they are 100% infallible and that they've always, nailed investor returns or returned above or something like that, they're selling you something. This is a dynamic business that has ups and downs. It has swings. Nobody had COVID in their underwriting, right? And so things like COVID show up, and not just COVID, things like COVID show up regularly for us, like real estate downturns, up markets, down markets. So those syndicators that are out there, claiming 110% success all the time, I would stay away, because they're likely not telling you about the time that they screwed it up, right? Ask me about the time that I screwed up and then I fixed it, right? That's a better conversation. Not like, hey, are you a schlep and do you continue to wrap your business around trees and stuff like that? That's not the conversation. It's, when did you have an unexpected matter come up like COVID, and what did you do about it, right? That's where true syndicator integrity comes up. When did something unexpected happen and what was your reaction to it, right? I could bring you to tears with stories, right? And also tell you what we did to make it right, because we've always righted the ship. Took us more time, and projections were projections, and we made investors what we could, and that's a way more honest response. And I look for transparency. I would look for transparency and honesty with syndicators versus flash and sizzle, and and there's a lot of flash and sizzle in our business, right, Seth?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I would get away from that. But so I also would look for track record. I would be prepared as an investor to do your own due diligence. So if a syndicator tells you I'm investing in Albuquerque, make sure Albuquerque is a market that makes sense to you. Don't just trust the research of the syndicator. Research the market too. Do your own, let your fingers do the walking, do some Googling. You probably got a brother-in-law that used to live in Albuquerque or something like that. Call him, we all know people. So redo your own homework on the markets. Do not blindly go in and trust all the data the syndicator gives you. As a passive investor, or as Robert Kiyosaki calls it in Cash Flow Quadrant, the I quadrant, right? It's a great book. You guys should all read that. Oh, yeah. As an I quadrant investor, you really become a detective. Like your job is to do a ton of research, and do all your due diligence and your work up front on the syndicator, but also on markets and on their investment strategy, and make sure it all makes sense to you.
Yeah,
You know,
you gotta
that's
do
where your
your
time
due
goes
diligence.
in.
I mean, yeah, ultimately it's your investment, it's your money. You've got to do your due diligence on the sponsor, the market, and the deal. And you've got to educate yourself
Yeah,
to how
that's
to
it.
do that. I mean, you don't have to go
Yeah.
in depth for hours and hours and hours and hours on end, but eventually, you'll get good at it, and you can make a pretty decent decision on what to
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
Quadrant investors still have to put some time in. It's
Yep.
mostly upfront. It's mostly front end on the deal, and then follow up during the deal. But the dollars per hour that an quadrant investor makes is it's great. It's really good dollars per hour. I'd be willing to challenge some of our doctors and lawyer friends that they're making that much per hour in their practices if you really extrapolate it out on the amount of money they can make and investing in a good deal for the amount of time that they put into it. The dollars per hour is off the charts.
Yeah.
On what you get, but you got to put just the time goes in first. That's it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's not completely 100% passive. There's definitely a little bit of work that goes up front, but after that's
Just do
done,
it up front.
then it really is passive.
Yeah, but then it gets passive once you do the R&D.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. So for our listeners who haven't invested passively yet, and I know you do a great job at this, but what can they expect after they wire that $50,000, $100,000 check? I mean, after they're holding their breath and they're like, "Oh, did I just screw something up?" What can they expect after that? Because that's kind of, if you haven't done it, then it's kind of a nerve-wracking experience the first time.
I can only speak to what we do as syndicators or what I would expect as an investor. I would expect regular communications from the syndicator. So we send out monthly emails. We also have a private Facebook group that all of our investors get access to. And we're constantly doing live sessions and videos. We're dorks with the online video stuff. So we do a lot of videos and Facebook lives and stuff like that from the sites. I'm going to Diamond Ridge next week, by the way.
Cool.
And that. So we'll go in video sessions from there. So I would expect regular communications from the syndicator. We send out quarterly financial statements. So I would say, some syndicators send them monthly, some syndicators don't send them at all. That's a flag, right? And that's a way to vet a syndicator is to ask a syndicator to not just tell you what they send to their investors. Fine. Say, send me some communications you've sent to your investors in the past, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and read that to see if it's like a 1 bullet point email. That's a conversation. I don't know, but we sent like an 8 bullet point email with a financial statement attached, with a video, with some pictures that Justin shot when he was down there. He's our asset manager. So then we do an annual update call too. And so I would expect regular communications from the deal. And obviously leading up to closing, once you put your 50K in, you should be getting regular communications from the syndicator as closing nears. And that's just good protocol.
Yeah. And one thing that you do that goes above and beyond that I've seen is you invite your investors to come see the property with you. If you're visiting,
I'm the only one that I know that's done that. And I'm not tooting my horn. Some syndicators aren't interested in the transparency that we do.
Right.
Some are like, are you out of your mind? Like you let these people walk the ground. Like, well, it's interesting because it's like, how do you, there is a balance. And we go to the sites, not just because we want to go take selfies, just freaking work to do, man. I got to go put the property manager in a headlock and find out why that tenant trashed their unit and, meet with my vendors and stuff like that. So there's balance. And with a big enough team like we have, I can run investor relations and, talk to investors and teach them and educate them, while Justin and his construction team, they run around and put the contractor in the headlock and stuff like that. But we are open door. When I go to North Carolina next week, 2 of our investors are meeting us there. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's something that we choose to do as a transparent move at a company. That's just but that is something that we consciously thought about as a company.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I love that, man. I want to give you an opportunity here to kind of explain to the audience some of the things you do to make the tenant's life better. I know that, on our deal together, that really stood out to me. All the things that you go above and beyond to really focus on the tenants and the people that call these places home. It's not just it's not just our business.
A place that they stay.
Yeah. This is somebody's home. Right.
Yeah. syndicate, some real estate investors lose sight of that. You start talking about tenants and statistics and, well, we've got to, we've got these tenants aren't paying. We got to move some people out. We got to do this. We got to shift it. Yeah. A nice way to say it is we have to shift the demographic at this property. That means throwing people out of their homes, man. That's what you're saying you're doing.
Yeah.
We've gotten away from that as a company. And that's, the mantra for my company is to transform lives through real estate. That's what we do, right? And that comes back to acknowledging these are people's homes. Now, that doesn't mean it's a charity. That doesn't mean that, because there's the tenants' lives that are getting transformation if they abide by our rules. And then there's the investors that are getting transformation too. They're meeting their financial wealth goals outside of Wall Street, while tenants are getting a home that has a community garden and has a playground, and has better security systems and has pride of ownership from the owner. And if there's safety hazards, we take them away. If they, if the tenant, is willing to pay their rent on time and maybe pay a modest rent increase, they get new appliances or something like that, right? On top of that, we are all about building community, because as humans, we want community, right? So we integrated this program called Apartment Life. That's like, to explain it simple, Seth, it's like living in a dorm again when you live in an apartment building, and then there's an RA, right? And the RA is there that's like running community. Remember like the dorky RA you had in college and stuff like that? That'd be like, hey guys, we're gonna go down and play some ping pong together in the rec room, right? But they were like, what they did, even though they were kind of like all rah-rah and like, why are you so excited, man? Like, calm down. But at the end of the day, what they're really trying to do, as simple as an RA, was to create safety and facilitate community, right? Yeah. That's what Apartment Life's all about. So yeah, there may be kids on site. So the Apartment Life person is going to go and bring in a jumpy house that the owner pays for. And so this is all like pre or post COVID, right? But I've seen Apartment Life folks have Zoom parties for their tenants, or have like a social distance coffee hour, whatever it is you want to do. Apartment Life helps you create community among your apartment complex and help folks get to know their neighbors and stuff. And from a selfish standpoint as an owner, what that does is if my tenant that lives in unit 10A knows all her neighbors and is in like a mahjong club with a woman that lives across the hall from her, and her husband plays Texas Hold'em with all the guys that live in the building next door, they're not moving, right? They're not moving. They're going to raise their kids in that community, and their kids are going to trick or treat among the apartment complex. And if your tenants aren't trick or treating in your apartment complexes because your apartment isn't safe or because you haven't created a community, and shame on you. If your tenants are not decorating their units for Halloween and going around going trick or treating in your apartment complex, something's not right. You know, that they should be, they're going to move eventually. As soon as they can afford to, they're going to move, right? Yeah. Speaking of moving, the other thing that we do is we use Ramsey Plus, which is, Dave Ramsey, right? And I don't agree with a lot of his philosophies as an investor, but as someone who's, foundationally trying to make it to the next level of finances of life, a lot of Dave Ramsey's things make sense, about like paying off your bad debt, and just keeping control of your finances or whatever. And Ramsey Plus is a software that we give to our tenants to help them build their budgets. Now, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make them drink. And I can't say, show me your financial statement, Mr. and Mrs. Tenant, right? But we give them that tool that they can go and put their stuff in there, and it helps them achieve somewhat a sense of financial stability, which also selfishly, statistically, it's been proven, aids them in being able to pay their rent on time, because it's in their budget. They are thinking about, oh, maybe I shouldn't go and, take my kids to the splash park and buy a brand new Denali pickup truck, because now if I do that, Ramsey Plus says I can't pay my rent anymore. That's not good. Maybe I shouldn't go buy the Denali or go buy a used Denali, whatever. Yeah. So that we use Apartment Life and Ramsey Plus are two different things we use, but it all goes back to transforming lives through real estate.
Yeah, very cool, man. And that Ramsey Plus program just reminds me of just, we don't have any financial education in school. I mean, we don't get it growing up. So anytime you can provide that to people, it's a powerful tool for them to just see like, oh, this is actually how I should be spending my money. Maybe I should think about it this way. And it kind of changes your mindset, and it probably changes their lives forever.
I hope so. It is and people like look at me like I'm nuts when I say this. It would make me over the moon goosebumps happy if one of my tenants through Ramsey Plus was able to move out of the apartment complex one day and buy a home, or was able to eventually squirrel up enough money and get some advances in their career that they could invest with us.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
that's not another class of people. That's just people at a different financial level right now. But we want to help them work their way up to the point where they can achieve next level of financial freedom themselves too. You know?
Sure. For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. All right, man. Before we wrap it up with the Freedom 4, one last golden nugget for our listeners.
Yeah, man. I think it's always a good time to look at alternative investing. Don't sit on your hands and wait for COVID to blow over. Don't sit on your hands and wait for the market to crash. It's always a good time to consider well-vetted investments. Passive or active, whatever it is you choose to do. The worst thing you can do is wait for things to change, because my crystal ball is broken. I don't know if the market's going to drop off the map, and nobody else does either. So I think that a lot of the last couple of years have gotten lost by people that are waiting for a crash or waiting for things to change, or now it's waiting for COVID to stop. You're going to lose a lot of growth that you could have. Time waits for no man or woman. So
Great. All right, man. Let's jump into the Freedom 4.
do it.
It's time for the Freedom 4.
What's the best thing you do to keep your mind and body healthy?
I exercise every day. I've been doing that the last 40 days, Seth, so I can't say it's something I've been doing for years, but I started a mantra to run on a treadmill or do yoga or lift weights every day, one of the three. And when I'm not doing yoga, because you can't really listen to podcasts when you're doing yoga and stuff like that, you might get in trouble in the yoga class for doing that. But when I'm on the treadmill or lifting weights, I got into listening to Blinkist. You heard of that?
Yeah.
Man, it's the best. So I'm on like a Blinkist kick right now. I'll probably get back into podcast soon in that. But right now I'm on a Blinkist tear, and Blinkist summarizes books for you. So I'm able to feed my brain while I'm working my body. And so I used to listen to music and stuff like that, but now I just work on feeding my brain when I'm working my body. And so Blinkist is like an 18 to 20 minute book summary. And catch this, it's today's February 11th. I've listened to over 50 books since the beginning of the year. Isn't that nuts?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
50. Now it's a 20-minute summary, some kind of cheating, but I get the gist. You know? I get the gist of it.
It's a good tool to like listen to, and then if you're really into it, then you get the whole audiobook.
And Blinkist will let you do that. Blinkist, you can, like, if you like just say, I listened to The One Thing. Phenomenal book. I got the gist of it. And if I want to buy The One Thing or listen to the audiobook or whatever, I can do that through Blinkist. I just go to Audible or whatever. So it's a good way to try a book, because I've listened to a few stinkers on audio, like, oh man, this book stinks. Yeah. And you don't really realize it stinks until you're like an hour or two in. I'm like, all right, yeah, Blinkist gives you an 18-minute summary. You're like, okay, that was awful. Let me just get on to the next one, Yeah. But I've just trudged my way through books I wasn't happy with and found ones that I was, and I can research them and put my notes in Evernote and stuff like that. So
Yep.
Blinkist and exercise daily.
Nice. In an alternative universe where you weren't involved in your current businesses, what would you be doing?
I was almost a teacher. You can see that, right? Because I love explaining stuff, and I'm probably overly excited and everything like that. I'll make a list. I was almost a teacher. I was almost a jet pilot, right? Like I almost joined the Air Force Academy to fly jets. Just through the grace of God or whatever, I'd end up not doing that. Sometimes I wonder where my life would have gone had I done it, because I loved, I was very passionate about that as a kid. I also think that I'd be a motivator somehow, because I just have it in my soul to challenge myself and try and drag a lot of people alongside me as I'm doing it.
Yeah, I can see that for sure.
And yeah, I'd probably be climbing a mountain and everybody, come on, let's go, let's climb this mountain. So whatever it is. So yeah.
Cool. I love that, man. So where were you at 5 years ago, and where do you see yourself 5 years from now?
5 years ago, I was just getting into bigger multi. We were buying a 49 unit apartment complex. We were getting into deeper systemization of apartment buildings, finding a true passion there, honing up how we could take our business to the next level. And I think that where I'm at 5 years from now is I'd like to be one of the major motivators or thought leaders that's moving more and more people to build their wealth with alternatives outside of Wall Street. So I want to be a mouthpiece for, hey, Wall Street's great, but you should also diversify with this other stuff over here too. I know there's a lot of people doing that already, but I'd like to elevate myself to the point where I'm viewed as one of the top people that are viewed as a resource, as a motivator to drive, a lot of America, not just the 1%, but to drive a lot of America away towards alternative assets.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, you're well on your way, man. Your YouTube channel is crazy.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Last question. How has passive income made your life better?
I'll get real, man. I'll get real on you. My dad died in 2010. And it was rough, but because of passive income, because of real estate, I was allowed to spend a lot of my time with him. And it was, he had cancer, and cancer is awful. You just watch people slowly degrade and just, watch them try and fight it, and it doesn't work out, and just watch it just slowly take him over. Right. So it took him over a year to pass. And so when he got diagnosed with terminal cancer, so because of passive income, I was with him almost every weekend. And on his final days, I was at his bedside for 2 weeks straight, right? No way I'm doing that working as an engineer or with, I get maybe companies give you leave, but you'd get clipped on your income. But I was able to be in the hospital with my dad and then step out in the hallway and make a phone call to deal with whatever I had to deal with. I mean, I'm at that point in my life, I wasn't at the level to completely unplug. So I had to do what I had to do some doing still. But passive income gave me my time to do what really matters in life, and I'm eternally grateful that I got to be there with him in his final moments because of passive income.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. Those are moments you're never going to get back. And if you're working in a full-time W-2 where you have to be in the office all the time, you might be able to step away for a few days, but certainly not in and out of there for a year.
No, certainly not. And I'm grateful that I was able to do that. So
yeah. All right, Matt, really appreciate you coming on today. Where can our listeners find out more about you?
All that you need to know is at DeRosaGroup.com, brother. The link to buy my book, the link to my book, Raising Private Capital, that I wrote for Bigger Pockets, Amazon bestseller. Thank you very much. Raising Private Capital. You can also join our YouTube community through our website. You can check out my wife's podcast, The Real Estate Invest Her Show. And if you want to learn more about passive investing with us, that's all there on the website too. DeRosa, DEROSA group.com.
Awesome. Thanks again, Matt.
You're welcome. Thank you, Seth, for having me.
Wow. Matt always brings the energy and the enthusiasm. People like Matt are the people you really want to do business with, right? Genuine, transparent, smart, and fun. If his story doesn't move you to start looking for your own pathway to produce passive income through alternative investments, I'm really not sure what will, but I'm going to keep on keeping on and keep pushing. So to learn more, I'd love for you guys to go and join our Esquire Investor Club by going to passiveincomeattorney.com and clicking on Join the Club. Also, check out all the other great content and freebies on the site. Until next time, enjoy the journey.
Thank you for listening to the Passive Income Attorney Podcast with Seth Bradley. Do you want more ideas on how to generate multiple streams of passive income? Then jump over to passiveincomeattorney.com for show notes and resources. Then apply for the private Facebook community by searching for the Passive Income Attorney on Facebook. And we'll see you on the next episode.